Thank you, G-Defy, for being a sponsor of Newsmax Podcast. G-Defy shoes are the best choice for walking, running, and standing. If you spend a lot of time on your feet, these are the shoes for you. G-Defy's patented Verso Shock technology aligns your posture and perfects your gait. Go to gdefy.com and use the code MAX for $30 off on orders of $130 or more.
With faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you.
There it is. And welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, July 19th, 2024. Former President Donald Trump officially accepting the Republican nomination for president in an RNC record 93-minute speech last night, full of personal and political experiences, accomplishments, future plans, and goals. First, it was not a good start to this Friday for millions of Americans and millions of other people worldwide due to a global IT outage. Microsoft resorting to X to confirm the outage due to an issue with CrowdStrike, impacting businesses around the world, including the airline business.
When I got here, there was a lot of chaos about an hour ago, and they kind of told me there was a ground stop, and I kind of asked what that meant, and I don't know, I didn't get a lot of clarity.
They said it's a Microsoft glitch. I don't know what it's all about, but it's frustrating.
Early this morning, the FAA issued a ground stop for all airlines, and little by little, the ground stop has been being lifted at airports across the country. But the damage, as you know, is done. You know how this goes with the airlines, the domino effect. I mean, once you have a big problem, it turns into a major, major problem. So if you have any travel today, expect a long delay. Banks, online retailers, and the media all affected by the outage as well. And there was chaos in Tel Aviv after a drone strike hit an apartment building near the U.S. Embassy, killing at least one person, injuring nearly a dozen others. That's from the early accounts. The Iranian-backed Houthis claiming responsibility for the strike. You remember the Houthis? Oh, yeah. They're a terrorist organization again. The Israeli army saying human error was to blame for the drone not being intercepted this time, and sirens didn't even sound, giving people no heads up at all. Iran, Israel, the war in Gaza, as well as the Russian invasion of Ukraine, our border, immigration, the economy, inflation, all things that Donald Trump spoke about last night. But he also spoke about something that previous nominees, fortunately, never had to.
As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened, and you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do. When I heard a loud whizzing sound, I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood.
He held a moment of silence to honor the victims of the rally shooting. He paid a special tribute to former firefighter Corey Comfortor, who was killed. He had Corey's helmet and uniform on stage with him. It was vintage Donald Trump on one hand. Most of the 93 minutes was vintage Donald Trump. But at the same time, there was a part of it that was a Donald Trump that we have really never seen before.
But I am very proud to say that over the past few days, we've raised $6.3 million for the families of David, James, and Corey.
He even took a $1 million check out of his breast pocket that he said a friend of his had given him that night at the convention. Then he started working his way into the business at hand.
Together we will restore vision, strength, competence, and we're going to have a thing called common sense making most of our decisions, actually. It's all common sense. Just a few short years ago, under my presidency, We had the most secure border and best economy in the history of our country, in the history of the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had never done anything like it. We were beating every country, including China, by leaps and bounds. Nobody had seen anything like it. We had no inflation, soaring incomes were going. Nobody can believe it. You can't believe what happened 4 years ago is happening now in reverse. And the world was at peace. Inflation has been a killer for our country. No matter what you make it doesn't matter, because inflation is eating you alive. People that were putting away money, they were making great wages, the highest they've ever made, but they were putting away a lot of money. Now they are just being destroyed. They're not putting away anything. They're barely living. They're going into savings accounts. They're taking out their money to live because of inflation. Inflation, remember, it's called a country buster. You can go back to Germany from 100 years ago. You can go back to any country that suffered great inflation. We've suffered the worst inflation we've ever had. But go back and see what's happened to those countries. We've had the worst inflation we've ever had under this person. But in less than 4 years, our opponents have turned incredible success into unparalleled tragedy and failure. It's been a tremendous failure. Today, our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken. And by the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions. The unions are suffering because of it. Thank you. Thank you. I like you too. Thank you very much. Inflation has wiped out the life savings of our citizens and forced the middle class into a state of depression and despair. That's what it is. It's despair and depression. We cannot and will not let this continue. Less than 4 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. We're going to be a great nation again. Thank you. With proper leadership, every disaster we are now enduring will be fixed, and it will be fixed very, very quickly. So tonight, whether you've supported me in the past or not, I hope you will support me in the future, because I will bring back the American dream. That's what we're going to do. You don't even hear about the American dream anymore. With great humility, I am asking you to be excited about the future of our country. Be excited. Be excited.
Trump asking you to be excited for the future, and then he asked all Americans, all of those that have voted for him in the past and those who have not ever voted for him, to give him your vote come November. He was introduced by his longtime friend Dana White, CEO of UFC, who Trump said was his first, second, and third choice to introduce him last night at the convention.
I'm in the tough guy business, and this man is the toughest, most resilient human being that I've ever met in my life.
Dana White, according to Trump, was on a vacation in a far, far, far away place with his family and took time to fly back and do that. So Trump was very appreciative. One of the many great speeches leading up to the president's address came from Hulk Hogan.
When I look out and I see all the real Americans, I think about how Donald Trump, his family was compromised. When I look out there and I see Donald Trump, I think about how his business was compromised. But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
It was at that point that the Hulkster ripped off his shirt, old school Hulk Hogan style, to reveal his Trump Vance cutoff t-shirt. The crowd was going crazy, as you can hear. The Hulkster basically blew the roof off the place. The other big story comes from the other side of the presidential race. There is a vast growing sentiment now that President Biden is going to step down as the Democrats' nominee this weekend, or maybe as soon as this weekend. Newsmax political analyst Mark Halperin was the first to report on it, and he joined Wake Up America this morning.
To the major breaking news last night from our very own Mark Halperin, breaking this story that, according to multiple sources, Joe Biden plans to withdraw from the presidential election as early as this weekend, possibly Sunday or Monday. The speech reportedly being written right now by speechwriter John Meacham. Kamala Harris is said to be vetting multiple candidates for vice president, this all coming 1 month to the day from the start of the DNC in Chicago. Joining us now to break it all down, political analyst Mark Halperin, who is still in Wisconsin. Mark, good morning. You might have scooped the universe with this story yesterday. You forced other networks to report on what you have been following for the last several weeks. Take us through how this would work over the next few days.
Well, the president obviously has a lot to deal with. Right. First of all, he's got COVID. Second of all, he's furious at his friends on Capitol Hill, Nancy Pelosi in particular, who he's known for decades. They're the ones who have forced this issue somewhat publicly, but largely behind the scenes. And while the president was not interested in polling data because he's just seizing on the polling data that he says shows he can still win, the fundraising, which Nancy Pelosi has been a big part of, sending a message about, is the straw that broke the camel's back. Simply impossible to run for president when you have to raise hundreds of millions of dollars when the money's just not coming in. And so, although the circle is tightened, although there are a lot of decisions still to be made, particularly about how a convention would work under these circumstances, I've been told by multiple sources that we can expect the president to make his announcement as early as the weekend, perhaps next week, and to clear the way for Kamala Harris and perhaps others to compete for the nomination.
Okay, so does that mean Oval Office address like we saw Richard Nixon make in 1974 and LBJ make in March of 1968?
Could be. The timing and modalities of this are very much up in the air. Remember that part of the embarrassment, some say humiliation, that Joe Biden's going through is what's driven this, besides the poll numbers, is the belief on the part of a lot of Democrats, including friends of Joe Biden, that he's not up to public presentation. And so the people around him who want to turn this into a celebration of his decision, self-sacrifice in the view of Democrats who believe he can't win, want this announcement and the convention to be an homage to Joe Biden, not just his career and his accomplishments, but his selfless decision in their view to step aside. So this has to be good. He can't come out and give a doddering speech because that would be enshrined in history as reinforcing what proud Joe Biden doesn't want to be known for, which is being president of the United States and being unable to carry out the duties of the office.
Yeah,
so
Mark,
how they execute this is important, but they don't know yet.
I suppose he could record his speech, at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office and do something like that. Yeah. He also, let's be honest, this is, the media can't wait to get behind Joe Biden, the statesman, and celebrate his legacy and cover up what they have not been covering for the last 4 years. And that's the story of what's going on between Joe Biden's ears. And if he does have some form of dementia, is this part of the problem? Is this part of the issue that Joe Biden yesterday, maybe he was, Axios saying that Joe Biden's coming to the around to the idea of not running. But if you've got dementia, maybe you wake up today and you kind of forget all that. Could that be part of the issue they're having?
It could be, but just as much a part of it. And this is why if what my sources told me yesterday turns out not to be exactly correct, for instance, he could decide to change his mind and be for Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has a history well before the decline in his acuity of being a horrible decision maker, really struggles whenever there's a difficult decision to be made to make it, and will always put it off. And part of why Nancy Pelosi and others felt they had to force the issue was they were worried that even if he sort of started to get the joke and realized there was no path to victory, that he would just delay, not just on the decision about whether to run,
right,
but on some of the subsidiary decisions. Should he stay on as president? should he endorse Kamala Harris. So he could change his mind, but that wouldn't necessarily be a sign of or a product of his decline. It could just be Joe Biden's a bad decision maker.
Good point.
That's political analyst Mark Halperin on Wake Up America this morning with Rob Finnerty. Newsmax congressional correspondent Kilmeny Duchardt reported on the big behind-the-scenes push to get Joe out that was happening on Capitol Hill yesterday.
President Biden is losing the support of top Democrats, especially on Capitol Hill. This is a renewed push right now that's happening behind the scenes to convince President Biden that remaining on the ticket is going to put the party in peril. In a recent conversation, Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi reportedly told President Biden that polling suggests he cannot beat Donald Trump. CNN citing sources briefed on that call say that the president became defensive. Pelosi then apparently summoned White House advisor Mike Donilon to show the president the data. Now, Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, they've also had direct conversations with the president. Schumer spoke with President Biden on Saturday. ABC News reported that it was a blunt one-on-one conversation where Schumer forcefully made the case that it would be best if Biden dropped out. And a spokesperson for Schumer, however, called that idle speculation. But both Jeffries and Schumer were apparently part of that push to delay the DNC's virtual nomination of President Biden, which we know now will not happen before August 1st. So while those conversations have happened privately, we reported on this very show that Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff emerged on Wednesday as one of the most prominent Democrats to call on President Biden to step out of the race. All of these media reports, Katrina and Bob, are very much part of a public pressure campaign. But the question is, how is President Biden going to respond now? Back to you.
That's congressional correspondent Kilmeny Duchardt on Capitol Hill. Today, ABC News is reporting that a senior Biden administration official says President Biden has now asked for polling on how Vice President Harris would fare against Donald Trump. The polling that we've seen thus far is not very good. She fares even worse than Biden has been faring in recent polling. News also emerged yesterday that Donald Trump met himself with Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle at his hotel in Milwaukee on Tuesday to discuss the shooting at the rally. Cheadle is under fire, as you know, for the agency's actions or lack of action at the Trump rally where the attempt on his life was made. Kilmeny Duchardt also had breaking news on the investigation into the shooter and the shooting.
I want to bring you some new developments right now this hour. House Judiciary Committee say new whistleblower disclosures reveal that Secret Service did not have adequate resources at the Trump campaign rally on Saturday due to staffing shortages from resources being diverted to the NATO summit, as well as an event that was attended by the First Lady Jill Biden in Pennsylvania. Chairman Jim Jordan has sent a letter to the FBI's Director Christopher Wray telling him to be prepared to answer questions when he testifies before that committee on Wednesday next week.
Congressional correspondent Kilmeny Duchardt on Capitol Hill. Adequate resources like drones, for example. You know, there were no drones, right? Due to staffing shortages, she said. Staffing shortages because maybe the budget for the entire Secret Service is about the price of one stealth bomber. Yes, that's a lot of money, but we're sending billions of dollars all over the world, as you know. And this is exactly what the America First agenda is all about and what it means. Meanwhile, the investigation into the attempted assassination of Donald Trump is turning up more and more disturbing information every day. Yesterday, I told you about the photos of the ladder at the building the shooter got on top of and the existing threat that the Secret Service had prior to the event, but they let the former president go out on stage anyway. Some of the many things that will be discussed come Monday. Secret Service Director Cheadle goes before the House Judiciary Committee. And according to our congressional correspondent, Kilmeny Duchardt, as you heard right there, FBI Director Christopher Wray will apparently go before the House Judiciary Committee as well on Wednesday. And on Wall Street, the markets opened deep in the red, well, fairly deep in the red this morning after closing in the red against yesterday. For me personally, and probably for a lot of people, my generation, my age group, you cannot talk about the news and talk about Wall Street without thinking about Lou Dobbs. It's synonymous. Lou Dobbs passing away yesterday, sadly, at the age of 78. A long time ago, I did a lot of financial news and had the privilege of speaking with Lou Dobbs on many occasions. There's a huge investment show that happens every year all over the country, San Francisco, New York, Florida, and in Florida, obviously. It's called the Florida Money Show. I had met Lou Dobbs there a couple of times. Super nice guy, super intelligent, super into space. A lot of people didn't know that. Back then, my partner on the radio was a guy named Jack Lott. Fantastic radio talent who also knew a lot about the financial industry, like Lou Dobbs. And the very last time we interviewed or spoke with Lou Dobbs, we just happened to be talking about, the Marianne or Ginger debate. What came first, the chicken or the egg? And the other great debate is Marianne or Ginger. So at the end of the interview, I said to Lou Dobbs, "Hey, Lou, before we let you go, Marianne or Ginger?" Without any hesitation, without a second of hesitation, Lou Dobbs says, "Ginger." So rest in peace, Lou Dobbs, and God bless his surviving family, his wife and children. It's just one of those stupid things you remember that we have talked about for a long time over the years. And what really made it funny was just Lou's quick response. And if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, Marianne or Ginger, go ask your dad. So the RNC is in the books. There'll be a lot of talk continuing about the RNC and whatever is going to happen on the Democrat side. Keep up with it all today and all weekend long on Newsmax, Newsmax.com. And make sure you're watching on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all of your favorite shows and favorite guests. Simply go to NewsmaxPlus.com and get signed up. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening. Please subscribe to the Newsmax Daily on whatever podcast platform you may be listening on. Have a terrific weekend. Let's hope and pray that it is better than last weekend. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.